And now we'll go back to Jane.
Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit about the Garden Grove site now. And because now we think that Richardson Point is a temporary settlement, maybe. Garden Grove we know is. Carla and Paul Gunzenhauser would be here today, but they are busy giving tours this week at Garden Grove, and it just was kind of busy for them. So they have given me some information that they wanted me to share. Once the Mormon settlers arrived at Garden Grove in '46, some ambitious members alerted their non-Mormon relatives of good land available. And the fields were already plowed when they arrived, and that really surprised me. I did not know that information. Dr. Daniel Roberts was one who corresponded with his brother-in-law, O.N. Kellogg, whose family was involved in starting new communities, selling land, and moving on. Dr. Roberts' wife was the sister to Mrs. Kellogg. These two upright and successful families made the connection between Garden Grove, the temporary Mormon settlement, and the permanent town of Garden Grove later. In 1850, an artesian well was located, and the settlement used it as a water source for many years. The majority of the saints left Garden Grove in the spring of 1851, a year before the general call to come west was given. The Garden Grove wagon train carried many yards of rope, which had been made during what they called the Garden Grove Rope Walk. Rope making appeared to be an activity done often by the pioneers at Garden Grove. Paul and Carla Gunzenhauser are Decatur County representatives on the Iowa Mormon Trails Association board. As farmers near Garden Grove Historic Site, they first became interested in the Garden Grove Mormon site in 1983, when the state of Iowa historian Lauren Horton put a small ad in the Leon paper indicating he was looking for the Mormon Trail history and would meet with anybody that had information at the Garden Grove Trail Site Historical Park west of Garden Grove, and that is where our Garden Grove site is now. Paul and Carla saw the ad and showed up on the given day. Albert Pidcock of Corydon was also there as well, and Debbie Ziglowski, a state of Iowa archaeologist. A few weeks later, the group met again at Garden Grove to speculate about where the trail might be. It was thought that the trail headed west, either straight west or northwest. That night, on June 1st, 1983, Dr. Horton spoke to a group of people at Leon, the county seat. Soon after the talk, the assistant county engineer walked into the building with two big books. He indicated that one of these books was the original survey notes for Garden Grove Township in 1846. The survey notes made it clear that the Mormon Trail went northwest from Garden Grove. In 1989, Dr. Horton brought a small group of social study teachers to Garden Grove on a tour he called Eye to Eye. Dr. Horton's co-leader, who Brad just mentioned, was Michael Zaz. And he was experienced at witching for ground anomalies, including grave sites. Mr. Zaz used his L-shaped coat hangers and found graves that day at the Trailside Park, a place believed to have been a Mormon cemetery. He also found some probable cabin sites to the east of the park. The Gunzenhausers learned how to use the wires. When they returned a week later, their son Robert had found a whole row of cabins. The Gunzenhausers owned the land around the park, and they continued to locate probable house sites. Many improvements have been completed during the year that followed at the site. A fence was removed that had cut through the housing site. A driveway was built between the cemetery and the housing sites, and the building sites were mowed around, and then inside were all mowed. They look like a living map of the houses. How many people have been to Garden Grove? And you've seen how they've made the cabins stand out. When the National Park Service provided interpretive panels in '96, a viewing pad was laid on top of a low hill so that the housing area could be easily seen. A parking area was fenced in and directional signs were put up with the help of the Decatur County Conservation Board. At the cemetery located on the trail site, Trail Site Historic Park, is a granite slab that was erected with a bronze plaque to memorialize the 1846 saints who rested and died here. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints put up the monument. A concrete sidewalk circles the iron fence that surrounds the monument. The park also includes a shelter house put up by the Decatur County Conservation Board. In 1996, the Garden Grove community hosted part of the wagon train reenactment. The enactment was west of Garden Grove on the Mormon Trail, and water for the animals was donated by the Rathbun Rural Water Association. Evening activities were put on by the members of the Osceola, Des Moines, and Iowa City LDS stakes. Many visitors come to the cemetery and settlement sites each year. Part of the housing area has been donated by the Decatur County Conservation Board to ensure both areas are forever open to the visitors. Coming soon to Garden Grove from the National Park Service will be new interpretive panels, a large site sign, and road crossing signs for the county. I'm going to go ahead and continue and talk to you now about Mount Pisgah. Now, Mount Pisgah is my favorite place because I live in Creston. Mount Pisgah is on the edge of our county. I've always been interested as a kid. My great aunt, who died at the age of 104, we took her down there one day on a tour when she was probably 95. And when we got down there, we thought she'd never been there before, but she told us, oh, my class at Afton High School walked down to the spring at Mount Pisgah when we were in high school, and we had a picnic there. And I was like, just amazed. So Mount Pisgah is besides being another way station, permanent temporary settlement, like we've talked about with the others, and like Brad said, you know, these places aren't just your history, they're our history to the Iowans that live here in Iowa. Mount Pisgah was the next way station to be created after building Garden Grove. The way stations were necessary since many of the people that left Nauvoo after February 1846 were not prepared for the cold weather and the very wet spring that was to come. They didn't have enough food supplies or the proper clothing or equipment that was necessary to travel in the Iowa wilderness. And they became very sick from black canker and ague. Parley Pratt, who was a scout of the Mormons, was directed to go search out an area for another temporary site. He was to look for the headwaters of the Grand River. He made the remarks in his journal, I came suddenly to some round and sloping hills, grassy and crowned with beautiful open groves, and the forest seemed blended in all the beauty and harmony of an English park, which beneath and beyond on the west rolled the main branch of the Grand River, with its rich bottoms of alternate forest and prairie. He named it Mount Pisgah. It had a good source of water, a large area that could be put into crops, trees for building shelters, and for fires. A group of men were sent to fence in the fields and begin building shelters for the people that were to come soon. They arrived in late May of 1846. They felled trees, built dugouts in the hillsides, and cabins on the flat areas. When the people arrived, many were ill, but those that were well continued to plant fields with all kinds of seeds, which include corn, potatoes, turnips, buckwheat. 1,400 acres were eventually planted at Mount Pisgah. Mount Pisgah was a settlement for 5 years. Native plants with berries and nuts were plentiful, and wild game such as turkey, quail, prairie chickens could be hunted in times of need. Over 20,000 people passed through Mount Pisgah. Many stayed short times during that next 5 years. Many died in the first few months at Mount Pisgah. As earlier mentioned, we learned to locate graves by using the coat hangers at Garden Grove and also at Mount Pisgah. 2 central burial grounds have been located, but many of the 300 who were buried there in those first few months were buried near their shelters because they didn't have the strength to take them to the cemeteries to bury them. They were just too sick and to have them transported. In 1914, a periodical that was written in a magazine, it was called Improvement Era, was written by an LDS member named Hannah Lappish from Salt Lake City, Utah. She had gone to visit her daughter in Dillon, Montana, and her daughter had wanted for her mother to see a real ranch, see cows and those kind of things. And so she decided to make arrangements with the man that she went to get her dairy products from. She made arrangements with him to come and visit with her mother. Well, actually, her mother was going to go to the ranch. The rancher said, well, why don't you bring her and she can have supper with us? And so they came, and Mrs. Depew, the owner was Mr. and Mrs. Depew. Mrs. Depew took him into the parlor and said, well, my husband's still outside. Do you guys just want to wait in here until he comes in for dinner? Well, while they were there, she spotted a bunch of books on a bookshelf, the ladies' library, and she spotted a book. And this was the book that she spotted. It was an old book called Centennial Sketches of Union County, Iowa. And it was written in 1876. And she opened the book, and she found a handwritten index, because it must not have been indexed. So somebody had written the index in that book. And in there, she spotted in a section called Reminiscences of Mount Pisgah, Iowa. As she read the book, she realized that it was the story of the LDS pioneers through Iowa. It had a map that indicated the location of the old Mormon cemetery, and Hannah spoke to Mrs. Depew and soon discovered that Mrs. Depew was the daughter of Stephen White, who had bought the farm from the Mormons. He had always told his sons and daughters that they would never plow where the cemetery was known to be. When Hannah went back to Salt Lake City, she spoke to Xenia Huntington Young about her experiences in Montana and what she had learned. Well, Xenia was so excited to hear that they had found the place where her father was buried, that she shared this with her brother Oliver Huntington. In a short time, the family members of those buried at Mount Pisgah paid for a monument in honor of their loved ones buried there. The church purchased the area at Mount Pisgah where the burials took place. And you can see in the picture here, this is the monument that they bought. The monument is still there within a fenced-in area with granite benches. The National Park Service, the Iowa Mormon Trails Association, the LDS Church, the Union County Conservation, and the Union County supervisors have all been partners. And these partners have been working since 1996 in making Mount Pisgah a place to enjoy. How many people have been to Mount Pisgah? Oh my, everybody. They have placed new directional signs and interpretive panels that tell the story of this part of the trail, developed a picnic area that was designed at the site with a shelter, modern outhouse, and grills for family activities, and the LDS Church at the same time has designed the area around the monument. The LDS stake from central Iowa has also been a source of volunteers in landscaping the area, most recently in removing a fence around the park. Over the years, many Eagle Scouts awards have been earned at Mount Pisgah by doing projects. Many visitors have been to Mount Pisgah site. Since '96, Mount Pisgah has been a regular stop for family vacations and bus tours from Iowa and other states. Our other interpretive panels are placed along the trail in Iowa to describe what other events there are, and I have a map out on the table. If you want to know where all the other interpretive panels are farther west, take a look at those brochures I have, and you can explore those at your leisure. And we will continue. Brad?
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to speak a bit about the Prairie Trail Museum and a few interesting and eventful stops along the trail that are close to the museum. One of those stops is Locust Creek Camp Number 2, and that is a very well-known spot. That is where...
Hey, Brad, you want to hit the slide?
I thought I could do both, but good thing I'm not chewing gum,
We're
too.
still in, there we go. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. At that Locust Creek Camp, that's the site where Come, Come Ye Saints was written by William Clayton, well-renowned Mormon hymn that I'm sure most of you folks know. He wrote that about the excitement he had from learning that his wife had given birth to a healthy baby boy in Nauvoo. Well, this site was researched by one of the founding members of the Iowa Mormon Trails Association, Albert Pidcock, and he was from the Corydon area. And he was a retired postal service. He spent a lot of time defining exactly where the camp was. And thanks to him today, there's a wayside panel there, and the LDS church has erected a monument also. Very pretty drive to get there. It's about 12, 13 miles from the museum. And the museum, if you ever get a chance to go there, it's for southern Iowa. It's a remarkable place. It's a beautiful building. They keep adding on all the time, and wonderful displays. But they've also got a really, really nice Iowa Mormon Trail display in there. There it is right there, that really stands out. It's got a picture of the oxen and a wagon. And they really, for being in the middle of Iowa, or in southern Iowa, they do draw a lot of attention. A lot of folks stop by there. And one nice thing that the Prairie Trail Museum is adding, since that is where we hold our meetings, people have grown pretty comfortable there as people move on and accumulate. A lot of the members have accumulated so much history, research paperwork of their own. They're now donating it to the museum, and we're happy to announce we're going to turn all that paperwork, make it available for folks. We're going to make it the Iowa Mormon Trail Research Center. So hopefully people can utilize all this remarkable history that these remarkable founders of the Iowa Mormon Trail Association have come up with. So that is, we're very happy to announce that. I think it's going to benefit a lot of people.
I'd like to interject. I have just been going through 5 boxes of materials at Mount Pisgah that Bob Brown, who owned the land, was given over the years, everything from autobiographies to diaries to people's family history. And those will be, as soon as I go through them, those will be in our new research center as well. So,
Invaluable information that's there now, and hopefully we will be getting more.
yeah.